Hi YouTube, welcome to the Planeswalkers and Legend Rule
Take
101.
4.
Take 4, I think. Like I said, we're going to be talking about Planeswalkers. I will admit this is one of the harder things to get. I totally didn't understand Planeswalkers as I was first playing. And they kind of suck because they like to break a lot of the rules of Magic and just be special.
They don't break them, they just bend them.
They bend them. But anyways, as an example, let's talk about Chandra Nalaar. She is a 5-drop, 2 red, 3 colorless, and she comes in what is 6 loyalty counters. Each Planeswalker will have a different number for their loyalty counters that they start out with, and they'll generally have 3 to 4 abilities that either add to their loyalty counters or subtract from them. In this case, Chandra has a +1, where she deals 1 damage to a target player, minus X, so whatever she has up, she has 6.
You get to choose whatever.
You get to choose between 1 and 6 to deal that much damage to target creature. And if she has if you can activate her -8, i.e. you've used her +1 like twice, she will deal 10 damage to target player and each creature here she controls. These abilities can only be activated once per turn during the main phase 1 or the main phase 2, and just one of them.
Although, we should mention that once a Planeswalker hits the board and you're activating one of their abilities, nothing can be done in response to that ability being activated.
It's what's lovingly referred to as super instant, and essentially there's no stack for a Planeswalker's ability. There's nothing you can play in response. It just happens. So if, say, Chandra had 3 loyalty counters left and she was going to use her -X and do 3, no player could be like, well, I Searing Spear it to kill it. The ability would activate first.
Searing Spear does 3 damage to target creature or player.
Right.
Since we're talking about damage right now.
Right. Let's talk about
how damage is done to Planeswalkers.
All right.
So, let's say you're playing red-white. You have a Traveling Philosopher, your opponent has a Garruk's Companion. It's a 3/2 with Trample. They say, I attack Chandra. So, if you have Chandra, you can either say, I let the attack hit, and she goes to 3, if she has 6 loyalty counters. Or you can say, I block with my Traveling Philosopher. If this was a normal creature and it didn't have Trample, that wouldn't matter. But it does have Trample. So, like we've explained earlier, that Trample makes any additional damage not done to the defending creature go to the player. You can also have it done to that player's Planeswalker because of a rule called the redirection rule.
Right. So, essentially with the redirection rule, anything that could be any damage that could be done to a player, whether that's combat or from a sorcery or from an instant or tap ability, whatever, any damage that could be done to a player can be redirected to a Planeswalker that they control.
So in this case, if Traveling Philosopher blocked Garruk's Companion would do 2 to Traveling Philosopher and then would be allowed to do 1 to the defending player or 1 to Chandra.
Right. One last rule about Planeswalkers is the Legend rule, which also applies to other things. But as you'll see with this Planeswalker, Ajani Goldmane, it has, next to its Planeswalker title, it has the name Ajani.
On cards, this is the type, that's the subtype.
Right. So it has a Planeswalker type and an Ajani subtype. Now with the Legend rule for Planeswalkers, this was Goldmane, this is Ajani Call of the Pride. But it has the same subtype of Ajani. When it comes to Planeswalkers, you may not control 2 Planeswalkers of the same subtype. You have to get rid of 1. So in this case, I might choose Ajani Goldmane to go away, and then I would have Ajani Call of the Pride. An opponent may have a Planeswalker of the same subtype, but you
just can't have 2.
You just can't have 2. It's also good to note that a Planeswalker always enters with this number of loyalty counters, in this case 4. So if you can find a way to flicker the Planeswalker to have it exiled, but then re-enter the battlefield, it'll go back to 4. So if it was higher, it gets reduced to 4. But one combo that people do is that they'll get the loyalty down to 1 or 2 and then flicker it to get it back up.
So to finish off the legendary rule, we have Shroom the Hegemon, one of my favorite cards. So Shroom is a legendary artifact creature. The artifact part doesn't really matter. Neither does the creature part, really.
Yeah.
The legendary rule states, and it was actually changed last year.
For 2014 and on has the updated
This is the
rules.
new legendary rule. I am allowed to have one legendary creature named Shroom the Hegemon. My opponent is allowed to have one legendary creature named Shroom the Hegemon. Neither I nor my opponent are allowed to have 2 creatures named Shroom the Hegemon.
In this case, one would have to go to the graveyard.
Exactly, as a state-based action.
But you might have it where, like, if there was a pacifism on one of your Shrooms,
You might play another one and sack that one.
and sack this one. So for Planeswalkers, Planeswalkers can't have the same subtype, but for creatures, artifacts,
They can't
enchantments,
be the same creature.
it can't have the same name.
Yep.
The name's important. There's a couple creatures where the name is like there's a new Avacyn coming out, but there's also the regular Avacyn.
There's Avacyn, Angel of Hope. I forget what the new one's. It's like Guardian something.
Something
whatever.
like that. Whatever. But you could have 2 of those. Unlike,
You could have one of each.
You could have one. You could have one of each, even though they're both named Avacyn. But you can't
Because
really
they're different cards.
because they're different cards. But you can't do that with Planeswalkers. That's
Yeah.
kind of the difference. Anyways, I hope that you guys learned how Planeswalkers and Legendary rules work. It's going to take some practice to really, get it down. Just remember, don't play multiple Legendary creatures of the same name. That can get you into trouble sometimes.
Unless it's advantageous to you.
Unless it's advantageous. But thanks for watching. Bye.